Hey everyone, welcome back to Just Jen Baking. Today we're getting back to cake baking. I am making a delicious black forest cake. This is another Live for Cake recipe. I'm very excited about this cake. It's for my very good friend who unfortunately is moving away, which I don't want to talk about, but I wanted to make her a going away cake because she's one of my best friends and I'm very sad to see her go, but very excited for her new exciting opportunities. So this is how I show love. I'm making a cake. We have some sifted flour in the bowl of a stand mixer. To that, I'm going to add some sugar, followed by some cocoa powder, some baking powder, some baking soda, and some salt. Give that a good little whisk by hand. We're then going to whisk together our wet ingredients. So I have some eggs, some buttermilk. Again, I made this just from some milk mixed with some vinegar at home, so no need to actually go out and buy buttermilk if you don't want to. Some vegetable oil, make our chocolate cake super duper moist. And then we have some hot coffee. If you've seen my other videos, you'll know that the coffee really helps to enhance the chocolate flavor. It doesn't end up tasting like coffee or mocha or anything, just super chocolatey and delicious. And then some vanilla. Those are about 2 teaspoons, so I'm just going to kind of give a nice healthy pour. Love vanilla. We are then just going to add that slowly to our dry mixture and mix together for about 2 to 3 minutes. We've been going for about 2 minutes, maybe a little less. I'm just going to scrape this off and gently stir the rest of it by hand. You want to make sure not to over mix a cake mix because that's going to develop gluten in the flour, which we don't want in the cake. Let's see. I'm going to go ahead and divide this between 2 prepared cake pans. I have greased them with butter and then dusted with cocoa powder, and then I have my parchment paper rounds. You can weigh the cake batter if you'd like. I don't think it needs to be quite that precise. I just kind of go back and forth. Now I have my Bake Even bake strips again. So they've been soaking in water for about 10 to 15 minutes. I'm just going to squeeze them out so they're not soaking wet. And put them around my cake pans, and again, that just helps make sure that we get nice, even, flat layers. These are going in the oven at 350 for about 45 minutes, or until a toothpick inserted in the center comes out clean. While the cakes are baking, we're going to make a quick cherry simple syrup. So I have half a cup of sugar and half a cup of water. We're going to bring that to a boil and let it simmer for about a minute. After it's done simmering, we're going to add some kirsch or some cherry liqueur to give it some cherry flavor, and this simple syrup will then be drizzled over the cake layers when we're assembling our cake. Since this is a black forest cake, we have to have some cherries in there, more than just what's in our simple syrup. So I do have some frozen cherries that I've thawed. Unfortunately, it's not exactly cherry season, so I couldn't find any fresh ones. So I'm going to cut them in half. They've already been pitted, but I'll just make sure there's no pits hiding in there. And then we're going to put those in between the cake layers. Now I could use either cherry pie filling or maraschino cherries. It's really popular for Black Forest, but this is kind of nice if you don't really like that sickly sweet taste of the syrup of the maraschino cherries. So you can use fresh ones. So we're going to do that. Our cakes are done, so we're going to let them cool on a wire rack while we work on our whipped cream toasting. We have some heavy whipping cream. To that I'm going to sift in some powdered sugar. And we're going to go ahead and whip that ferociously until we have stiff peaks. We are not quite at stiff peaks yet, but while it's mixing, I'm going to add in some clear vanilla. Clear vanilla can be really nice if you don't want to affect the color of your frosting. You really want this to be kind of as close to white as possible. Recipe doesn't call for vanilla, but you know, it's what I do. We now have some stiff peaks. That's delicious. Whipped cream frosting is really nice if you're making something for someone who doesn't like overly sweet or buttery frostings. It really kind of lets the flavor of the cake stand out on its own. The extra vanilla is a nice touch, if I do say so myself. So, the next thing we're going to work on is the outside of this cake is decorated with a chocolate bark, which I've never done before, so I'm kind of excited to see how this goes. So we are going to melt some chocolate over a double boiler. Once our chocolate is nice and melted, we're going to scoop it onto a parchment paper and spread it nice and thin. So what we're going to do with this is we're going to roll up the parchment paper and then put it in the fridge for about 30 minutes, or you can put it in the freezer for about 20. And because we're rolling it up, it's going to cool in this like slightly curved shape. And when we unroll it, it should break off in these really cool curvy shapes of chocolate. While our chocolate is cooling in the fridge, and once our cake layers are a little more cool, we're ready to begin assembling our cake. We're first going to want to torte the cake layers, which means to cut them in half with a cake leveler. We're then going to put a little bit of frosting on the cake board before actually beginning to assemble our cake. Remember, we made that nice simple syrup with cherry liqueur, so we're going to drizzle that in between every cake layer. We're then going to top it with a nice thick layer of that whipped cream frosting before topping that with our cherries that we chopped up earlier. Once we've repeated this for all 4 cake layers, we're going to coat the outside with a crumb coat, which we are then going to chill in the fridge for about 30 minutes before we finish with our final outside layer of frosting. Alright, our cake has been chilling for about a half an hour, so I'm first going to put some frosting into a piping bag so I can have it reserved. There's some little decorative bits on top. We're now ready to add our outer layer of frosting. I generally like to add a thicker layer of frosting than I think I need because it's always easier to scrape off any excess while you're trying to get smooth sides. So just add a lot of frosting and you can scrape it away later with either an offset spatula or a bench scraper or whatever you have. The nice thing about this cake is since we do have that chocolate bark for the sides, we really don't need to have the most smooth sides, but I do want to try to have a nice smooth top because that is going to be exposed. So just keep sort of adding and scraping until you're happy with it. Once that's done, you can use the reserved frosting to add any decorative piping bits that you'd like. For this cake, I just did a rim of some swirled rosettes. I really didn't want to do too much piping because I wanted the chocolate bark to really be the standout. Once the chocolate bark has hardened, you're going to slowly unroll the parchment paper and it should break off in these cool curved strips. Now it is pretty thin, so it will melt with just the warmth of your hand, so you want to handle it as little as possible. Yeah, it really does look like bark. Look at that. That's fun. Okay, cool. Huh. Fun. I'm just going to kind of poke it in the sides, all rustic-like, like a forest. Get it? Because it's a black forest cake. You're just going to continue to add little bits of chocolate wherever you feel it's necessary. There's really no rhyme or reason to this cake. It's kind of supposed to look a little rustic and random, so really it's up to you. Wherever you think it could use some extra chocolate, put some extra chocolate. I really enjoyed this kind of technique. I thought it was really kind of fun and I'd never done anything like it, and I'm actually really happy with how it turned out, so I hope you give it a try. So now I'm going to add some chocolate shavings to the top. We're going to do that by taking a vegetable peeler and some chocolate. I'm hopefully not messing. Oh, look how pretty that is! Oh, that works better than I thought it would. Oh, it's like little chocolate dusting. Oh, it's so pretty. That's fun. There! I think he's done now. Oh, that was what it needed. Look at that.
It melts. It just melts.
Oh, yay.
It's so good.
You're welcome.